יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום. זה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא רואה את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה. בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי. הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום. וזה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא רואה את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה. בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי. הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים. Sometimes this plan ain't so easy to see, but I know that he's taking care of me, taking care of me. So I'll do away with my vision today, and I'll let things play out in a godly way. My little human eyes just don't get the picture here, but I got no reason to fear. הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים. Don't forget, הכל משמיים. יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום. זה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא רואה את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה. בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי. הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום, וזה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה, בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי, הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. Sometimes it's plenty too easy to see, but I know that he's taking care of me, taking care of me. So I'll do away with my vision for today, and I'll let things play out in a godly way. My little human eyes just don't get the picture here, but I got no reason to fear. הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. הכל משמיים. Don't forget, הכל משמיים. יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום, וזה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה, בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי, הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום, וזה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה, בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי, הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. הכל משמיים. עצום את העיניים. and I let things play out in a godly way. My little human eyes just don't get the picture here, but I got no reason to fear. Hakol mishamayim, oh, atzor et ha'einayim, oh, hakol mishamayim, oh, atzor et ha'einayim, Kol mishamayim. Don't forget, Hakol mishamayim. יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום. זה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא רואה את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה. בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי. הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים, עצום את יודע מה אני רוצה היום, אבל הכל משתנה פתאום. וזה בסדר, אני לא אשם, כי זה רצון השם. אני הולך לא רואה את הסוף, מאמין שיהיה רק טוב. אני קטן, כן אני קטן, והתמונה גדולה. בכל מה שקורה זה סבבה, לא מפחד משום דבר, כי אני בידיים של אבא, של אבא שלי. הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים, הכל משמיים, עצום את העיניים. Sometimes this plan ain't so easy to see, but I know that he's taking care of me, taking care of me. So I'll do away with my vision for today, and I'll let things play out in a godly way. My little human eyes just don't get the picture here, but I got no reason to fear. Hakol mishamayim, atzom et ha'einayim.
Hey everybody, this is David Sussman, and I'll be your first presenter here in a 4-part series being brought to you by Project Inspire. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Rabbi Simcha Barnett and Rabbi Yosef Friedman and to everyone at Project Inspire for coming up with creative and innovative ways to bring Israel into your homes and connect you to your Jewish identity and, of course, our shared heritage, and for remembering us tour guides who have been suffering quite a lot here during this pandemic period. So thank you again for making this all possible. This is a 4-part series. Today, myself, David Sussman, will be bringing you to the Golan Heights in Israel's north. I'll be followed by Rabbi Ken Spiro and Patrick Amar, who will be bringing you to various sites in the city of Jerusalem. And last, but definitely not least, Steve Gar, who will be bringing us to the holy city of Hebron, and the tomb of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. All of these tours will be excellent for you and your families to connect with Israel. And if you haven't signed up for the future tours, make sure you do so. And I hope you enjoy today's tour of the Golan Heights.
Today, we are focusing on the beautiful Golan Heights. The Golan Heights is a small parcel of land, although you wouldn't think that with the amount of attention it receives in the media today. But it's only roughly about 50 miles long and maybe 13 miles wide at its widest point. But strategically speaking, this cliff and plateau is seriously important for the safety and protection of the entire nation of Israel. What are the boundaries of the Golan Heights? Well, to the north, you have the large Mount Hermon, rising 10,000 feet above sea level. It even boasts its own ski resort. To the south, you have the Yarmouk River, which flows into the Jordan River. And at that point, you have Syria, Jordan, and Israel all touching one another at a beautiful place called Hamat Geder, these great hot springs that one can visit on their trip here to the Golan. To the east, you have the Rakad River, and to the west, behind me, you got the gorgeous Hula Valley, one of the bread baskets of Israel. But it always wasn't a bread basket. In fact, that huge green lush area you see behind me was nothing but swampland for literally millennia. It wasn't until those modern Zionists came here, those stiff-necked Jews that we know we can be, that were so stubborn and refused to leave even though there was starvation and malaria there. They said, "This is our land, we will make it bloom once again." Well, in the 1950s, with the help of the French, believe it or not, they built these trenches on the eastern and western side and drained the swamp, leaving behind black gold. No, not oil, but an extremely nutrient-rich soil that the farmers here in Israel took full advantage of. But like any human, we took too much advantage of it, and we over-tilled it, over-fertilized it, abused it. What happened was, in the early 90s, caverns opened up underground and spontaneously combusted. You had these infernos raging underground, which was destroying the vegetation up above. That's when Israel realized that by draining the swamp, we had caused severe ecological damage. So we reintroduced the swamp with the Agmon Lake. In addition to reintroducing that swamp, we also reintroduced the traditional migration pattern of the birds traveling from Europe to the west and the rest of Asia to the east that are going down towards Africa for the winter and then back home for the spring and summer months, which makes Israel a prime location for bird watching. Literally 500 million birds each migration season passes through the land of Israel. Just look at some of these beautiful sites right here of that bird migration in the Agmon Lake region. So, how do we get here? How did Israel take possession of the Golan Heights? So to answer that question, we got to go back to the Six-Day War, which takes place in June of 1967, because the entire Golan Heights was controlled by Syria between 1949 and 1967. And they built hundreds of bunkers like the one I'm sitting on right now that speckled the entire Golan Heights, and especially along the cliffs that look down onto the Hula Valley. Down below, you have dozens of kibbutzim and agricultural developments and thousands of Jews who were living there during that time. They were under constant threat by the Syrians, who were sitting in this bunker right here, staring down at them and occasionally firing upon them as well. Now, the Six-Day War was a miraculous war. I mean, they don't even teach the Six-Day War at West Point for military strategy, because it's mind-numbing. It's mind-boggling. We just can't understand it. It was miraculous, really. 6 days, a small nation, the nation of Israel, against the mighty Egyptian, I almost want to call it empire, like the mighty Egyptian army, which is funded and supplied with armament from the Russians as well as the Syrians. How in the world is Israel going to be victorious? In fact, we prepared for this war by digging mass trenches, not to stop tanks from entering Israel, but for burying our dead. That's how serious this was. We knew that Nasser, the Egyptians in Syria, that they were going to attack. They had thrown out UN peacekeepers and lined up their troops and their tanks and their armaments on our border near the Sinai Desert, near Eilat, stretching all the way up to the Gaza Strip. And we knew that we needed to strike first. So we flew in early in the morning, in the beginning of June, and literally just bombarded their entire air force, giving us supremacy of the air. Now, before we end our discussion about the war and the battles that took place here, I want to move to another site, and I want to discuss an individual who may be one of the most major personalities of the Six-Day War, even though he died in 1965. So come with me. So I'm sure many of you saw the Netflix documentary about Eli Cohen called The Spy, Our Man in Damascus. So he's the individual who probably had the biggest impact on the Six-Day War here in 67, even though he died in 65. And that's because he went behind enemy lines as a spy, pretended to be a Syrian, and was so successful that he actually became friends with the president of Syria. In fact, some people say that he was one heartbeat away from becoming the president himself. That if the president had died, many people would have rallied behind Eli Cohen to become the next president of Syria. Just imagine that. Unbelievable character, lots to talk about him and lots to discuss, but we don't really have the time. But definitely look him up, and if you haven't seen The Spy on Netflix, you gotta watch it. It's really unbelievable. But here in the Golan, he told the generals and the Ministry of Defense in Syria to plant eucalyptus trees, like you can see behind me over there, to give shade for the soldiers, and to build barracks here, and to create some type of recreational activity, if there's living water, pools, places where people could cool off a little bit here in the hot summer. Well, this is also where later on the Syrians would actually put their stashes of weaponry, and when we came in 67, we knew exactly where to bomb because of these eucalyptus trees. And you can see bombed out bunkers all over the place, and you can still see a standing mosque right behind me where some of these Syrian soldiers would actually go and pray. And all of this amongst the beautiful Golan Heights that is so gorgeous right now, as we're still in the middle of winter, if you can believe that. There's a huge storm coming up here pretty soon, and but yet it's very green. The flowers are in bloom. There's snow on the Hermon. The birds are chirping. The butterflies are flapping their wings all over the place. And here we are sitting in the middle of a war scene from 55 years ago, 1967. Anywho, let's move on and tap into some of the historical Jewish aspects of the Golan Heights. So come with me. Let's talk about the heyday of the Golan Heights, which is about 1,500 years ago during the Talmudic period, when there was over 200,000 people living here in the Golan. Now, Put that in contrast with today's population, which is around 36,000, half of which are the Druze people, a minority living here in Israel, whom we'll talk about a little bit later during the show. Well, this Talmudic period here in the Golan, with 200,000 people living here, spread out over 40 different villages with a population of roughly 5,000 in each, their main source of income was olive oil. Olive trees grow great in this region. And there are many different stations to the pressing of olive oil. This is, in fact, the second station after they initially crushed the olives. They'd come here and put the sludge in these baskets, and with these weights, press it down and extract even more oil. That oil was important because that was the oil of the day, right? Today, we need oil to run this world. Well, back then, they needed olive oil. It's the way that people used to light their houses with candles on Shabbat, right? We still, to this very day, light our Shabbos candles usually with olive oil, or at least that's the best way. That's the optimum way to light your Shabbos candles, is using olive oil. And the Talmudic period is important in Judaism because that's when the oral Torah was codified. It's when we took all of that oral transmission from generation to generation to generation, all the way back to Har Sinai, to Mount Sinai, when we received the written Torah. The oral Torah described how to fulfill those mitzvot. Well, that all ended after the destruction of the Second Temple, when the Romans kicked us out of Jerusalem and forbid one another from teaching Torah. So this great Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and the great Rebbeim of the time had this massive debate that lasted, many, many years in order to codify Jewish law known as halakha. But halakha doesn't really mean law. It comes from the word holech, which means to go. It's the way of the Jew. It's the lens in which we use to judge right from wrong in this world. Now, it has been expounded upon, where you have tens of thousands of books known as Sfarim, all about Jewish law, or the way of the Jew. And you have to understand that the rabbis that you're connected with, they're like PhD scientists in Jewish philosophy and the way of the Jew. They went and studied in a yeshiva for 10 years, for 15 years, and they didn't stop there. They continued to learn, and probably will all the way until they're 120. Well, Jewish law is so defined that it goes so far as to tell you what shoe to put on first. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're like, what shoe to put on first? Like, no wonder we're so neurotic, that it guides our actions in life so precise. It tells us what shoe. I don't want that. Well, you know what? If you don't scratch the surface in Judaism, then all you will see is an ancient, archaic way of life. But all of these actions and all of these mitzvot that we have, as soon as you scratch that surface just a little bit and understand the reason behind it, then you'll see the beauty in all those actions. Now, which shoe do we put on first in the morning? We put the right shoe on first, because we want to step forward in life with the right foot, right? And the right side in Judaism represents chesed. It represents kindness. So when we get up in the morning, we put that right shoe on first. We are reminded that when we go downstairs and greet our spouses and our children and our family and our community and our workplace and whomever we come into contact that day, that we want to come in contact with them with kindness, with the right foot first. I'm just going to share a very, very quick story. I was doing a virtual tour in Yad Mordechai, and this place is on the border of Gaza, and they produce honey here in Israel. And we went out to the honeycombs, to the beehives, and we took out one of the combs, and it was covered, and it was all gray, and it had little bits and pieces of grass and leaves in it from, the bees coming back with the pollen and the honey. And it looked disgusting. And the beekeeper said, now take your nail and just make a small incision. And I did that, and all of that golden, beautiful honey started to pour out. That's the same here in Judaism. You need to scratch the surface. Ask the questions. Find out the meaning behind the commandments and the mitzvot in order to attain that higher sense of living that you can't get through our ancient way, the way of the Jew. Let's now head to a national park here known as Gamla to see the ruins of a Second Temple period village that existed here all the way up until the Romans came and destroyed it in the year 66 CE. So let's go. Unfortunately, the nature reserve here in Gamla is closed due to COVID-19, so we can't access the ruins that date back to the Second Temple period. But I do have some great footage from my television show, Land of the Bible, where we did a great show here pre-COVID time. So let's enjoy some of that footage, and I'll meet you with my friend Yaakov Sullivan, who's a captain in the 188th Tank Brigade that was stationed here in the Golan Heights, to talk a little bit about the logistics and what is happening here today, and of course the civil war that's been raging in Syria. The Golan Heights has been the scene of warfare for thousands of years. We can read in the Bible of the conquest of Joshua. We know that there was battles here during the First Temple period, as well as the Second Temple period. In fact, the ruins of a city you see behind me was one of the 3 fortified cities here in the Golan during the Great Revolt, where the Jews rebelled against the Romans. Well, the Romans sent their #1 general, a guy by the name of Vespasian, with 3 Roman legions to defeat that city. But the city was well fortified. And not only that, the only way to descend to the city was through a very narrow path. It's the same path that tourists can walk down today to visit those ruins. This gave the advantage to the Jews inside that city, and they were actually able to repel the Romans. Well, the Romans regrouped. They attacked the city again. They breached its walls, and they defeated the city, and all 9,000 people were eventually killed. Today, after excavations have taken place, tourists can visit the national park here in Gamla and see the ruins of that great battle. But not only that, archaeologists have discovered a 2,000-year-old synagogue, one of the oldest that has ever been discovered. So not only is a trip to Gamla an educational experience about the Great Revolt, but it's also a spiritual pilgrimage for many. Let's continue as we learn more about the modern battles that took place here on the Golan Heights. So here we are with my good friend, Major Yaakov Sullivan, who lives in a small yeshuv, a neighborhood known as Yonatan, and it's literally 7 miles from the border of Syria. How does that make you feel?
One, I talked about the period of time where there was no government here. That was a rare window of opportunity where the barriers fell down, and we had an opportunity to have a direct connection with the locals living here.
When you say barriers, you mean like the border?
The border didn't fall down. Actually, a new fence was built. But I mean the mental barrier. Meaning, if I wanted to contact a Syrian farmer 10 years ago, there was a government in between. I couldn't talk to the average local. Suddenly, the average local has no government. His son was just shot. There's no functioning medical system in Syria. There's no government. So he brings his son to the border with Israel. And an IDF soldier comes to the border and takes his son and saves his life in the hospital in Safed or Nahariya. And we're talking about over 6,000 Syrians treated in Israeli hospitals, over 1,400 Syrian children. Why did we do this? First of all, because we're Jewish. Secondly, because we realized that this is a key for the day after. We understood at some point the Assad regime, the Syrian regime, together with their Iranian friends, will take over the region again. And we were planting the seeds for the day after. Now, I told you Iran is trying to recruit here. They're having a very hard time. The locals are not just joining them, because if Iran wanted to use us as a common enemy with the locals and tell the locals, yes, we don't really get along, but you know what, there's Israel, they're the devil, let's fight them. We're not the devil anymore. They have to pay a lot of money, and several locals are joining them. I can tell you, David, in the past few months, there's been intensive riots against the Iranian regime, against the Iranian presence in southwest Syria. The locals actually assassinated the head recruiter for the Iranian militias, who was going around the villages trying to recruit young guys to come and join these anti-Israel militias, and they assassinated him, meaning something happened here. Today there's tens of thousands of Syrians in Syria today who are still wearing clothing they got from Israel, who might be even be eating food they got by Israel, whose life was saved by Israel. And this is a game changer. This is something that gives me hope for a better future.
Wow, amazing. So hopefully this new administration in America will keep the sanctions on Iran, preventing more fighters from Hezbollah and militias funded again by Iran. And we'll continue the diplomatic work and building relationships across the board. I think this is all incredible. You also run a program called Slingshot. Now, a lot of our viewers out here, when COVID is over, please God, it'll be soon, plan on bringing their families to Israel. So tell us a little bit about the program that you run here at Tel Saki.
Okay, so I'll say I served in the IDF for almost a decade, and today when I protected my country, I fought in the 2014 Gaza war. And when I left the Army 4 years ago, I found a way to continue to contribute aside from my reserve duty. So I explain to people from the world what's happening here and Israel's challenges so they can bring out our voices around the world, like we just explained. But also I do motivational speaking in the Army, and I try motivating the soldiers who are protecting our homeland. So aside from my motivational programs, I also make sure that every time, you brought dozens of groups to the Golan, and we always go out and treat the guys and make sure, how much they know how many people love them in the world. And
well, incredible. As Major Sullivan said, I have brought dozens of groups to his presentation at Tel Saki, and everybody loves it. Meeting the soldiers, saying thank you to the soldiers, learning about the heroism from the various wars that were fought here, and of course the courageous activity that is taking place right now here in the Golan. Major, thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you again soon in healthier times.
Amen.
One of the great things to do here in the Golan Heights is to visit one of the several wineries in the region. And wine from the Golan Heights is world renowned because the vineyards are grown in that volcanic rock that we talked about earlier, which gives the wine a real full-bodied flavor. Now, the biggest winery here in the Golan, and one of the most popular ones, is the Golan Heights Winery. And if you've been to Israel, most likely you've been here. They produce some excellent wines from the Hermon, which is their least expensive, all the way up to the Yarden, which is their most expensive. Now, an interesting aspect of wine in Judaism, well, first of all, we need to realize is that it is a fundamental aspect of Judaism, right? We say Kiddush on Shabbat, the holiest day of the year, which we celebrate every week, on a glass of wine. Havdalah when we take Shabbat out. On Passover, we have 4 cups of wine. If you're a male and you had a Brit Milah, the moil who does the circumcision puts a drop of wine in your mouth. In ancient times, Israel was known to produce some of the best wines in the world. We exported a lot of our wines. So how come when people think of kosher wine, they think of Manischewitz, which is horrible? You got to be at least 70 years old to enjoy Manischewitz. My mother, God bless her soul, she's 82 years old. Every time that I visit her, she opens up the refrigerator and says, "Let's have a l'chaim," and she takes out some Manischewitz. And I'm like, Mom, we really have great kosher wine now. In fact, some of the wines here in Israel are winning awards around the world. I just want to share one incredible little story that I heard from, I believe his name was Yitzhak Flam, who owns the Flam Winery just outside of Jerusalem. He won an award in France, a wine competition, and during when he received the wine, they said, "Wow, it's amazing what you've been able to do with our grapes, particularly Chardonnay." And he says, "You got it wrong. Chardonnay is not a French grape. It's an Israeli grape. Because when you take the word Chardonnay and you break it down to 2 Hebrew words, you get Sha'ar Adonai, which is God's name. Chardonnay, Chardonnay, right? This is the gateway to heaven. And that's why on Shabbat, after a full week of working, back in the day in the fields, but today at the office, wherever it is, and always looking behind your shoulder, who's looking at you, checking your pockets, is somebody trying to rip you out, in the world. And then all of a sudden comes Shabbat and you're supposed to enter this spiritual time. How do you bring it down or bring it up in order to tap into the sanctity of this time?
Well, you do it on a kos yain, on a glass of wine, Chardonnay, the gateway to heaven. So we can't come here to the Golan without talking about the Druze people, a very interesting minority living here in Israel, roughly about 120,000, and they are an intricate piece of the fabric of Israeli society. In fact, we have members of Knesset who are from the Druze people, and a large percentage of the males actually serve in the military here. Now, they're an offshoot of Islam coming out in the 11th century, and as a result, they were persecuted by the Muslims around the Middle East. So they sought out safety by settling in the valleys of the large mountainous region here near Mount Hermon and further north in Lebanon, in Syria, and even in Jordan. The community you see below me is called Migdal Shams, and this is the capital of the Druze people here in the Golan Heights. So we have a very special guest with us today from the Druze community. His name is Bougie. He's a guide here, showing people around and showing the hospitality of the Druze people. So he's going to tell us a little bit more about the life of the Druze here. And in order to do this interview, we're just going to keep it safe, and then we're going to put on our mask. Bougie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time and telling us a little bit about your people. So please tell us a little bit about the livelihood, what you guys do here. I mean, it is so beautiful. So take it away.
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I want to tell you a little bit about Migdal Shams in the beginning. Migdal Shams is it's about 11,000 people live here. And all of them are Druze except for about maybe 2-3 families are Christians. And it's a very nice place, as you can see.
Beautiful.
Like in spring, in summer, and in winter you have the ski, you have the tourism here.
Yeah, there's not so much snow. I thought there would be a lot more snow.
Yeah, well, it's coming in 2 days.
2 days, big
yeah,
storm.
There's a big storm coming. Hopefully it won't be too much, actually.
Wow.
I want to say a few things about Migdal Shams. It's in the north, and here, if you can see behind me, you have the buildings. Where the buildings and the green starts, that's Syria there. So you
wow.
can
From our vantage point, you can actually see the fence.
Yeah,
You know, so the buildings stop, you have a fence, and where it's green, that's Syria.
The buildings are right next to the fence. They
Wow.
live there. And we can actually see Syrian buildings as well on the other side.
Sure.
Syrian cars and all what you can see. And it's a very touristic place. We are famous with food. A lot of people come here for food, good hospitality, and very nice people, and come to ski. Also, talking about tourism, the main thing here is not only ski, it is the snow and ski, but also the cherries season, which is in May, June. It's full with tourism. Everyone comes here to eat right from the tree, as you know, this is the new organic. And something more about the Druze. The Druze they have always lived in on the mountains or higher places. Farming is in every Druze village. You see farmers, and they are hardworking. As to holidays, we have one holiday the whole year, which is nothing. Then we don't have another holidays like Shabbat for the Jewish and stuff. So they always work. So they are hardworking people.
So are you looking forward to the snow coming in a couple days, and maybe Israeli tourists? Obviously international tourists can't come here today, but Israeli tourists?
Yeah, hopefully without the corona it was a lot better.
Sure.
Hopefully it will continue to be good, and hopefully there will be some skiing this year with this situation.
Well, you know, my kids, who are 6.5, have never really had a memorable experience in the snow. So maybe after this storm, you know, we could come visit and maybe stay by you.
Of course, you're more than welcome.
Bougie, you've been great. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. And let's continue as we explore more of the Golan Heights.
Thank you very much.
One can't talk about the wars that took place here in the Golan Heights without visiting what is now known as the Valley of Tears, where an incredible battle took place during the Yom Kippur War of 1973. And it's called the Yom Kippur War because on October 6, 1973, Syria surprise attacked the nation of Israel. That's right, on our holiest day, the Syrians bombarded the northern region of Israel, and here in the Golan Heights, which was liberated, as we discussed earlier, in 1967. Now, all of the trees you see planted here were planted in memory of the soldiers who fell in battle in this incredible site. The reason why it's called the Valley of Tears is from all of the loss of life that took place here during the Yom Kippur War. Now, just imagine, first of all, it's Yom Kippur. It was a surprise attack. The only soldiers here defending Israel from the Syrians were two tank brigades. You had the 77th and the 188th. The 77th, which was located here in the northern part of the Golan Heights, was led by Colonel Avigdor Kahalani. And he tells about the battles that took place during the 6th and the 7th of October. That the fighting became so close to one another that you couldn't even see the difference between the Israeli lines and the Syrian lines. And no place is that depicted better than right here, where you literally have an Israeli tank almost touching a Syrian tank. Now, these tanks were brought here later on. They weren't actually this close, but they were dozens of feet apart from one another when the commander of this tank saw the Syrian tank. And first of all, just look at the two tanks, okay? The Israeli tank, outdated. It's like ancient in those times. Okay, Israel, of course, added some armament, it added new technology inside, but this is like ancient technology compared to the incredible T-62 night vision capability, precision shooting tanks that were given to the Syrians by who else other than the Russians. That's right, the Russians supplied all of this, and all of these tanks are coming in. We were so outmatched, both in number as well as the technology. However, where we reign supreme is with the heart, the devotion, the passion, and the understanding that a battle for Israel is a battle of life and death. And because of that, the soldiers here were able to fight with such incredible bravery that even though they found themselves just literally dozens of feet apart from one another, they were able to load the cannon, shoot the tank, defeat the Syrians, and lead them, or should I say push them, into any retreat. And then we did our counter-offensive, right? We actually did an offensive against the Syrians and pushed them back into Syrian territory that we were literally in cannon shot of their capital, the city of Damascus. Unbelievable bravery that has now given us this beautiful valley, which is known as the Valley of Tears, but now maybe it should be known as the Valley of Blessings, because as you look around, you can see how green, how lush, how beautiful it is, with vineyards and pastures and groves and orchards, and such incredible amount of life that is just blooming everywhere you look. And we have to thank the incredible soldiers who fought here during the Yom Kippur War. Nimrod's fortress is one of the largest fortresses that has been discovered from the medieval period, not just here in Israel, but all over the Middle East. Called Nimrod's fortress, dating back all the way to Nimrod from the book of Genesis, who was described as a mighty hunter. And the fortress here, which was built by the Mamluks in order to protect the major trade route, which consisted of the Hula Valley that we saw a little bit earlier, just a little bit to the west. And this trade route connected Beirut and Lebanon through the Hula Valley and then across the Golan Heights all the way to Damascus, making this an important junction. And the Mamluks who built this saw the importance and the strategic advantage of building this fortress up high so that you can see far and wide and protect your interests. Come, let's walk through the fortress and see some of the beautiful sights here. One of the most beautiful stelas, stone inscription that was discovered here in the land of Israel, and for sure here in the Golan Heights, has to be the Baibars inscription. The beautiful stone stela that we see here, chiseled out of limestone in Arabic, talks about the warrior Baibars who defended the Mamluk people and the Arabs who were living here in the land of Israel in the 13th century from the onslaught of the largest standing army ever assembled by man. And who are we talking about? Obviously not the Romans, but Genghis Khan and the Mongol world. They were heading south towards Africa, but it would be Baibars and the Mamluks who were living here that would stop them in their tracks, making Baibars one of the greatest warriors of all time. Just like any good fortress, Nimrod's fortress also has a secret exit. The secret exit is also equipped with special windows that are broad on the inside but narrow facing outside. And this was for archers to shoot their bow and arrows out the window at any advancement a army is making on them. So let's walk through the secret passage, check out some of those windows as we head out of this area. Hope you all enjoyed the tour today of the Golan Heights, from the northern section of Nimrod's fortress all the way down to Gamla and several points in between. You know, it's just incredible to see this rich heritage of Jewish life here that dates all the way back to really the book of Genesis, through the first and second temple period, the Talmudic period, of course, and now in the present as we met Major Yaakov Sullivan and all the residents of the Golan Heights. Thank you again to Project Inspire for making this happen, and for all of you for joining me. And if you have any questions pertaining to the tour today or anything about Israel or visiting Israel, please contact me via Facebook. Look me up, like my page. I got great content there as well. David Sussman, Israel Tours. In the meantime, let's enjoy this incredible sunset here over this beautiful reservoir in the Golan Heights.